The call is being recorded. This is so that others, you and others that are not here, if you want to review it, you're able to do that. If the others that aren't here want to review it, they're able to do so. At any time that you want to speak, you are welcome to do it freely. And if you don't want to be recorded, simply ask me to stop the recording, and that's what I'll do. I want you to have a space here to say what you need to say and ask questions, and I'll do very my utmost to accommodate it. And I'm delighted that you're here. It means the world to me that you're here. You can also change the view on your Zoom if you're familiar with it, so that you can have only a speaker view. And if you want to see the group and continue to watch that, there's often, it can be distracting. There's some movement around there. So make it suitable to your own soul and psyche, what would absolutely uplift you in that way. And we'll finish in 1 hour. And I'm available to you by contacting me, marthacreek.com. If you want an appointment with me, go to Contact Martha and schedule. And it's right there on the website. And my email is marthacreek@gmail.com. You can welcome to send comments or questions to me at the email through that email address as well. So think about what living untethered means to you. If you have any sense of any time during your life that you was living less tethered, freer, more liberated, and get a sense of it in your body. And if you can have it now, then imagine now, like what it would be like in this very moment now to be untethered, to be one, to be a speck of the universal existence, less identified as a body, less identified as something separate, alone, unsafe, disempowered, seeking, wanting, needing, what it would be like to be freer of all that. So we dedicate this time and this place to the realization of this, of what most of us have studied for decades, claim to believe and speak as the truth, that there's one power and one presence in all the universe, and that I am one with that power and presence, that I'm infinite and eternal, and that what is real about me cannot be at risk or hurt or harmed. And that the emotions and the reactivities and the hurts and harms exist in a realm of emotionality, a psychological realm, and feel real. And certainly at times. That we're here in this course to allow for that, to make some space and room for that, and to have emotions, and to give emotions space, and to be less identified with them, and more able to be a witness, an observer, and what it would be like to observe more than we absorb. So as you hear these things, if you hear something tonight that would be an indicator, like if your body is a tuning fork, you may hear something that's resonant, something that you want to see is do I believe this? Could this be true for me? Then I'm encouraging you to make a note or to go there, to kind of circle back to it. And as usual, in the classes I facilitate, I'm here to do my own work. And I don't ask you to believe anything that I say and to question everything. So listen as freely as you can, knowing that you are your own authority. And that we're in a place here of exploration, of discovery, of learning, of being and becoming, and free to do so, and to have a little fun, maybe. So what's the consequences on you of trying to hold it all together? It may just be me. If you can resonate, if you can relate to all the effort it takes you to hold it all together, what are some of the consequences on your life of trying to hold it all together? Use the chat if you want to put it over there. Otherwise, raise your hand and speak it if you want to. Fatigue. Somebody says fatigue. I'd say tell the truth. Exhaustion. Or chronic fatigue. Like no space in it. Not a day where there's not some kind of encumbrance to this. Of waking up every day and like, oh, I'm here again. And I'm the one that's got to hold it all together. And when I can't hold it all together, I've got to pretend that I'm holding it all together. Frustration, irritation. It's the consequences on you of trying, the attempts of trying to hold it all together. And then what do you fear would happen if you did less of that? If you did less of it, what do you fear would happen? Yes, thanks, Linda. Thanks, Bill. Like despair, making mistakes, and then make mistakes, and I got to clean up my mistakes now. Loss of self. Over-functioning. Julie says over-functioning, like over-functioning, overdoing. For me, taking responsibility for things that aren't mine. Inserting myself in situations that I have no responsibility for whatsoever. And then wondering why I'm exhausted or overwhelmed or despaired. What do you fear would happen? Try not to be spiritual here. Let your humanness out. Thanks, Jim. I'd be seen in my imperfections. My imperfections would show. I'd be seen as less than perfect. And go into that a little deeper if you can. Like, what is it? Vulnerable? Yeah. Like you're in your imperfections, like you're dumb or stupid, can't do it, you're incompetent, incapable, don't have it all together. What are your imperfections? Like you're rude, you're moody. Like what is it what is it you're so afraid we're going to find out about you? What is it you're afraid we'll see? That you're a fraud, that you've been pretending. Thanks, Julie. That I'm terminally falling apart. I'm hopeless. There's no hope for me. I can't measure up. That I have no worth or value. And I just can't do it. I'm not a grown-up. I'm not grown up to handle my life. Anybody relate to this? You know, just kind of give yourself a little wave like, oh my gosh, oh my God, they're reading my mind here. Look, we have the same mind. So now think about then, what would it take during this class, these next 4 weeks, starting tonight, if you were willing just a little to dial it back? If just for tonight and throughout this coursework of 4 weeks, if you did a little less of trying to hold it all together, if you dial back a little bit of your imperfections, your perfectionism, if you dialed it back just a little, what might that look like? If you were willing for us to see it. I'm going to just put on a dose of courage, join this crazy creek woman, and give this a go for a few weeks to see if I dial this perfection down just a hair, and I dial back this fear, this vulnerability of being seen. How might that look? What might be an example of it? Maybe more joy. If I relaxed just a little bit more, I might be a little bit more relaxed. It could be a little messy. Brene Brown refers to it as the messy middle. I'd be in the messy middle. Just get a sense of if we could have a little peace with that. Bonnie said, I'd rake a portion of my yard instead of my whole yard. These sound like little things, don't they? None of these are little things. And living untethered, to say, I'm willing to say there's a mistake, and I'm willing to make one. And I'm willing to drop the shame and guilt and self-hate and recrimination I have at myself when a mistake is made. Or maybe I'll apply what I teach, that there's no mistake in the universe. It didn't turn out the way I had in mind. That doesn't make it a mistake. Byron Katie says it as, no, it didn't turn out the way I had in mind. It turned out perfect instead. Get a sense of what it would be to embody that. And yes, willing to make a mistake, willing to be called a mistake. This is huge, Teresa. You're right about it, honey. Yes, I'd ask for help. I say, I need some support here. Now, does that cause some of you to lose your breath at the thoughts of having to ask for help? Anybody gasping for air? We can throw out an oxygen mask. The compartments on the ceiling will open and an oxygen mask will fall from the ceiling. Put the mask over your nose and mouth and breathe freely. Be sure to put the oxygen mask on yourself first. To say, I need some help here. I could use some help here. Or to say, I can't do this. Or I'm not going to do this. I won't do this. Like, this is not my responsibility. Go to bed at a reasonable time instead of trying to finish the infinite to-do list. I saw you, Bill. Bill and I are in a competition with to-do list. Okay, big deep breath. Living untethered. So Michael Singer says it as this, and I'm going to put this quote in the chat, and just Linda says, I'd be willing to say what is truer for me, my truth, so to speak. Michael Singer says it as this: we are constantly trying to hold it all together. If you really want to see why you're doing the things you're doing, don't do them. Don't do them and see what happens. Sounds scary? If you really want to see why you're doing things, don't do them and see what happens. I can tell you I'm too scared to do that. I don't have enough self to do that, at least as far as I know, just quit doing some of the things I'm doing, but I'm willing to go in that direction. I'm willing, and so my practice, so see if you can come up with one for you. My practice is going to be, there's the quote, is that I'm going to see what for am I doing this? So I'm going to hold a mindfulness around what I'm doing. And I'm going to add a question to see what for am I doing this? So I'm going to add a level of mindfulness. And there may be something that I'm just not going to do anymore. If I can't find an honest what for, then I'm not going to do it. And see what comes undone by taking that one little new course of action. Now, anybody here spend any time and energy trying to figure things out? Anybody besides me? Oh, there's 2 of us. Okay, 4. Okay. So we try to figure some things out. Now, look at what that cost you. Need to know, got to figure it out, connect the dots, make sense of it. How do you say that even? What's some of the words y'all use when you're trying to figure it out? I've got to know, I need to know, this has got to make sense to me. I can't connect the dots on this. This is not coherent. Like, what's some of the descriptors for this madness of always trying to figure things out? And if you didn't, if you simply stopped this, what might that do to your energy level? Yes, Jim, there's a better way. There's bound to be a better way. I got to find the better way. Always seeking the better way. So all the energy this drains off of trying to figure it out is a leak of our vital life force. So, in the Untethered Living, if you want the book, by the way, it's Michael Singer's book, Untethered Living. It's not required reading. And you can also go listen to him all day and night on YouTube for free, Michael Singer, and his podcast and dissertations about this. And one of my favorite takeaways is, and I'm having to be a little careful now because I noticed I'm kind of getting addicted to it, is like, I don't understand the rings around Saturn. Does anybody here understand like how Saturn got rings around it? And you know how much time I spend every day trying to figure out the rings around Saturn? None. I don't spend any time trying to sort out the rings around Saturn. So what if I applied that to everything? The look she just gave me, the tone of voice she just used that I don't prefer, the missed deadline, the flood, the drought, traffic. What if I said, I don't know? What about that tone of hers? I don't know. What about that look she just gave you? I don't know. See if you can say it. You're all muted. Try this on and just see, what does it feel like to say the words, I don't know? And is it freeing or frightening? I don't know. Well, how are you going to solve that problem? Jim and Lisa, how are you going to solve that problem we have? It's like, I don't know. I've got some thoughts about it. I've got an idea or two, and I'm moving in that direction. And past that, I don't know much about it. What's going to be the outcome of this? We've got to assure a certain outcome about this. It's like, I think the same way. I have those exact same thoughts. And I'm no longer believing, like I'm doing this class with this crazy Creek woman, and she's dared us to believe for a month that I can't actually know what an outcome is going to be. That I can put some things in place. I can cause what I can cause. I can create what I can create. And I'm also now living more surrendered to, I've done what I can do, and I don't know what the outcome is going to be. And in order for me to live less encumbered, freer, more untethered, more in atonement, more in alignment, I can't make outcomes my business. And I can't make outcomes my business and have any level of peace. And Linda had the audacity to say, it opens up a possibility that I may not be correct. It opens up a possibility that I may not know everything. That what I think could be limited, maybe. How do you choose which things? Jim says. And Martha says, let me know, Jim. You can report in next week. How are you going to choose which things? That's to be determined, honey. I don't know. I can just know that for years I waited. I denied my reactions. I denied emotions. I suppressed, depressed, disowned. And then eventually they just take over. So now I'm more into the subtleties of them. So I don't wait till they get up here and start choking me out. I catch them more when they're at the toe level and use it as feedback. Like, I don't want this to go any further than it has. So I'm going to do everything I can in my spiritual practice. I'm going to pull back and observe, less absorb. I'm going to remember the rings around Saturn are not comprehensible to me, and I'm going to apply it here. And I'm going to practice saying, I don't know, those 3 words. I'm going to write those 3 words, and I'm going to speak those 3 words, and I'm going to answer, I don't know, when it's true. And see how that promotes my living untethered. Go back, if you can, to the beginning of where we innocently took on that it wasn't okay not to know. Can you go back that far? Where we innocently took on, you better know, and you better figure it out, and you better have a plan. And if you don't know, you better just act like you know. and that some sense of our safety is tied up in this innocently. So just to do that one little thing for this month may be plenty to literally say, I don't know. And I hope one of you will go write a song about it or something so we can say it came out of this class. So this is a practice. So I'll offer about 3 or 4 practices each week while we're studying together, and use any one of them or none of them. You're encouraged to at least pick one to see what difference did adding one spiritual practice to your life do for you, just to add a practice. So I already said I don't know, using I don't know as one. And then the first one was to say, I'm going to question what I'm doing. What for am I doing this? And I may not do it, just to see what'll happen. And this third one I just put in there is, when disturbing me, to stop asking, what should I do about it? And instead ask, what part of me is disturbed by this? What part of me is disturbed by this? And many of you know that I'm also facilitating a group and looking at the way our parts work, our internal parts, that include parts like our inner critic. Does anybody here have an inner critic? Anybody relate to like an inner critic, an inner voice? So is it that part? Is it my perfectionist part that's disturbed here? Is it my manager part? Is it the part of me that desperately has believed since I was a child that I better fit into the mold? And here's the mold girl, and you better get yourself in the mold. Is it that part that's disturbed? Is it the part that demands respect? Now, this is key to us high righteous spiritual types, because we believe in kindness. We're here to be kind individuals, very kind. I'm a kind person. I'm a kind person. It's like, well, I'm a kind person until somebody's not kind to me. And then what happens? When they don't show up as kindness, what do you do with your disturbance? So I'll give them a lesson in kindness. And only you know what that is. You know, I'll shut down my love for them. I'll withhold. I'll gossip about them, go away, retaliate, vindicate. These things are real human potentials. What part of me is being disturbed by this? And then be with that part. So instead of trying to get the other to change or displacing our feelings over onto the other, what part of me is being disturbed, and go to that part to hold it, to go care for that part, instead of hoping the other person can do what they can't do, what's not attainable. Any questions about these 3 practices or anything else? Wave your hand like this, put it in the chat. Anything you want to put in the field. We're about halfway in here. Okay. The floor stays open. You're welcome to bring your questions or comments here. Lisa, will you hold up the book, honey, for everybody to see? This is the book I was referring to, Living Untethered. This is what it looks like if you want to write that down or refer to it later. And would you open it, Lisa, and read anything in the book, honey, that you've selected that you want to share here with the class tonight?
I thought you were going to tell me what to read, but I have all kinds of, okay. Here's something I highlighted.
Good.
Remember, you are not surrendering life. You are surrendering your resistance to life. We can use the term mindfulness to mean you are always conscious of what's really going on around you and inside you. You're not just conscious of the appearance of things, but also their true nature, where they come from, why they are the way they are, and what it took for them to manifest before you. It is a natural, effortless process once you let go of personal distractions.
So how do you hear that? Like my mind went automatically to living untethered. So if our goal is to live untethered, less bound up, less disturbed, less tense, less stressed, if that's what living untethered means, then that's a demonstration to me of I would live more of my life in awe. That's how it hit me as I
That's what he
heard
says.
the read. Like I would be more in awe of life. So how would that look in you? What would it mean in you that if I had less resistance, I don't have to like what happens. Please write that down somewhere. I don't have to like it. I sure don't have to love it. And I don't have to resist it. I don't have to go to war with it. So could we dare add another practice that says, I'm going to spend some time in awe. In awe. At least once, somebody told me a joke once about somebody got into one of my classes and said, oh my God, like I'm really awakening here, Martha. Like, my God, my eyeballs will wake up. I'm in gratitude, 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 gratitude. I'm in awe of life. And then I say to God, oh my God, my life is so good. And I'm about to get out of bed. So pray with me. So what's going to happen once I stand up? Once I get on the phone, once I get on the emails? So if I spend some little time in awe, it could be how far somebody went to do something kind for you. I was in awe today because I really wanted to get something done, and I literally had about a minute and a half. And I texted somebody and asked for a piece of information that was literally 2 words. And I've never gotten a text back from this woman, and even in the same day I sent it. So I'm less resistant, am living untethered, and willing for it to be different, and willing not to get a response from her as per usual. And I had this big, sincere desire to really check this off of my to-do list. And I literally had a minute and a half. And I want you to know she sent a text back to me in just a few seconds. So the awe of I was wrong again. I was wrong about her again. I was wrong about how much time it would take. I was also willing to send that text. I was willing to send my email without that piece of information. Does this sound easy? Like I was willing for it to be imperfect, to free myself, to get that off of my plate, to get that off of my whatever was hovering over me. I was willing for it to go out imperfectly, incomplete. Joy, joy, joy. I tell you. So where could you find awe? A new place that you could find awe. These are your assignments. And then The quote that I pulled for tonight, besides the ones I've already offered, here's the next one. According to Michael Singer, the author, the truth is that most of life will unfold in accordance with forces far, 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 far outside your control. So take a big deep breath. And see if you can, if willing to say this. Repeat after me. The truth is that most of life will unfold in accordance with forces far outside of my control. Now, how does that hit you? The truth is that most of life will unfold in accordance with forces, nature forces, far outside of my control, regardless of what my mind says about it.
Martha?
Yes.
So, would it be okay to ask what I want?
Absolutely. Well, is it okay with you?
Well, yeah, it's like okay, this is what I want, but maybe being able to be okay with the fact that I don't always get what I want.
What? Drop the maybe and say it again, honey.
I don't always get what I want.
Say it again.
I don't always get what I want. But if I try sometimes, I just might find.
Well, that's right, honey. So ask for what you want, be as clear as you can, and surrender to reality for your own sake, for your own peace, and for my sake, that at times I will get what I want. I'll even be in awe that I got what I wanted. And there'll be times somewhere along the way that I'm not going to get what I wanted.
Okay.
So living untethered means accepting both.
Okay. And then what about the universe is always working for my good?
Well, what about that?
Well, there's forces far outside my control. I thought there were forces that are working to create my good.
Well, and just notice, honey, if you believed that the universe, and I don't know if you believed it or not, you didn't say that you believed it, you asked, what about that? So,
Well, that's what my religion preaches. I'm trying to think. I think I do believe that. I think
well,
I do believe I'm a co-creator of the universe.
you're in good company here. So if you believe the universe is good and has only good for you and is causing and creating what is good for you, how would you react and respond when you don't get what you want?
Honestly,
Uh-huh.
honestly, it takes me a moment.
Oh, well, that is honest, honey.
It's like, what?
Yeah.
But eventually I can cajole myself into, okay, something better. If not this, then something better. But yeah, it
Many
takes
of
a
us have
minute.
to go through it, honey. You know, one of the early New Thought teachers, one of the women early New Thought teachers used to say, "Now look, I demand to see the blessing in this." So it's not what I wanted. It's not how it turned out, and I demand to see the blessing in this. Like I'm going to do my best, which cannot be done, honey, by denying the part that a sincere part of us wanted it.
Okay.
And for me, it's been very powerful because I spent a lot of years, like decades even, honestly, decades claiming that I wanted certain things that I didn't. So I was the last to know that I didn't actually want them. So for example, I would say things like, I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. I want to lose weight. And the truth is, I wanted to drink sweet tea out of gallon jugs more than I wanted to lose weight.
Hmm.
And it's like, and oh, and I want to be free of the physical requirements of having to exercise. So I'm not going to go to a gym or exercise or burn any calories, but I sincerely want to lose weight. So is it true that I really wanted to lose weight? And then what's the consequences on me if I continue to dupe myself and lie to myself that I actually want that when I've not really questioned it to see, is that what I actually want? And my actions are not in accordance to what I claim that I want. So we may be getting what we want and not even realizing it.
Hmm.
Thank you for giving voice to this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else? Remember, you're not here to believe or think like Martha. You're not here certainly not to agree, and to use this any way that you can for your own awakening. The truth is that most of all of life will unfold in accordance with forces outside of my control, regardless of what my mind makes up about it. So my prayer is that you can test that out, try it on, and be free in that. And then let me just put this other quote over there. And it's in the chat. If you can see the chat, would you read it to yourself first? If you can't see the chat, don't worry. I'll read it out loud in a minute. And where do you go with this? There is nothing more important to true growth, spiritual growth, than realizing, or emotional growth, or psychological growth. There's nothing more important to true growth than realizing that you are not the voice of the mind. You are the one who is hearing it. So if you're willing to test this a little bit in this next week until we meet again, or this month, what would it be like to observe the mind and not mistake it for who you are? So less identification with the voice of the mind. Now, this takes down shame, guilt, self-hate, recrimination. So then if a thought comes through me, you're the worst excuse for a minister I've ever seen. And I don't insert myself in it. And I know, oh, that's the voice of the mind. And I'm the one hearing it. So I've got to stay the listener. I've got to stay the observer and not insert myself in that. So to disidentify. Then when somebody walks up to you, some of you are ministers and you don't have to be, you can say somebody walks up to you, says, you're the worst excuse for a human being I've ever seen. And you realized they are not, this is coming through them also. They're also not the voice in their head. How would you respond to such a comment? If you understood they're not the voice of the mind in them either. How would it affect you if they said you're the worst excuse for a human I've ever seen? There's real potential here. Comments or questions?
I would say, I'm sorry you feel that way. That's your opinion.
Yeah. What if you actually had compassion for them?
Well, people are allowed to think whatever they want to think.
They're going to anyway.
Right.
But what we're looking at, Victoria, here is that they are not the thinkers. So how could I hold them responsible for what they're thinking while I'm practicing awakening to, I'm not the voice of the mind in me. I am the one hearing the voice in me.
So if I'm not the voice of the mind, who is the voice of the mind?
That's a different class.
Let me know when you have it.
You go first. But you know, that's a part of figuring it out, honey. And the getting on the gerbil wheel of let's go figure that out versus what if I just land right here? What if I just land right here and apply this, that I'm not the voice of the mind. I am the one who's hearing it. I am the observer. I am the witness.
Martha, in the example that you gave, I find myself wanting to run towards that with curiosity. And it's even easier because it's absolute. I am the worst excuse for a human being ever. Like, there are 8 billion people on the planet. That would make me pretty special. So what's going on that you think I'm that special?
Well, and that's often you've got a superpower, honey, of levity, Bill. And anything that can be a crowbar, to keep the mind open enough to say, no, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute here. I'm the worst excuse for a human. So some reason or logic, and if you've got access to it, then use it. And we won't ever have to if we don't mistake that I'm the voice of the mind instead of I'm the observer of it. And we've got the inertia of 2,000 years here. So we've got, and I'm open to a miracle, a living untethered miracle. And the peace. Yeah, one of you put in the text privately, I would be more inclined to have some compassion. I'd have more compassion with myself and what's coming through my own mind, what's coming through the mind in me. That's not mine either. And one of you said I would hear it as a call for love, or like say more, tell me more. And I had a life-defining moment that was similar to this. And when my mother was alive, and she was prone to yell, scream, outrage, very passionate, this fiery, sassy kind of spirit. And she would, for example, she said, one of my first memories of her, I was just a young girl. I hadn't even gone to school yet. And she had taken me to this fall festival, and she thought I was going to have the time of my life. And I was very confident kid and didn't know strangers and all that. She got me to this place and I was terrified. It was dark and I was little, and all I could see were legs in the dark, just nothing but legs. And I wasn't moving, like I was just paralyzed there. And she was saying, go have fun, go play, like go on, go. And I couldn't move, like I was literally paralyzed. And she said, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And it's like, everything, like I'm paralyzed, like I can't move here. So it's like this is like deeply held. And then years later, decades in her life, we were planting this very precious plant that she had purchased at a high price, and we had been nurturing it for days. And now it was time for it to go in the ground, and we had to wait for these perfect, ideal situations, weather-wise and ground-wise. And the moon had to be in the right hemisphere, and the sun had to be in the right house, and God only knows, like all these ideal conditions. And we got out there in the garden, and I'm down on my knees in the garden digging this hole. It's ready for the plant, this ceremonial, the holy grail of a plant. And I have no idea what happened. Forces outside of my control and forces in nature. And I had in my mind, I had my hands like this, just ready to receive this plant. And when it passed from her hands to these open hands, it broke right in two. And she yelled out, look what you have done. And I was so still. I was so struck and so willing to feel whatever was left of me. And nothing came. Like no reaction came. And I just was so willing to react. And no reaction came. And then when I spoke, I said, are you believing that I broke that on purpose? And she said, I don't know where that came from. Forces outside of our control. So I had a compassion for her that I never had, and a compassion for myself that I'd never had. That all of this coming through her was not her either. The voices in my head is not who I am. I am the one hearing it, observing it. There's real potential here. And this is the closing invitation. And next week, I'll be able to stay on a little bit longer, maybe, and chat and talk it up with some of you. And tonight I can't, to keep a commitment I made to a church board. Do not let anything that happens in life, in all of life, be important enough that you're willing to close your heart over it. But regardless of what happens, I'm going to do my best not to let my heart close over it. And when and if, and likely it will, to some degree, my heart close, I'm going to start there. I'll start there. All right. Thank you for being here. I know who you are. I know what you are. I know whose you are. And I'm honored. It's such a privilege for my soul and spirit to spend time with you. And you're absolutely a fulfillment of my own mission to serve those who serve. So I'm highly, highly honored that you're here tonight. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing you next week. And let me know if I can support you in the meantime.
Thank you, Martha.
Martha.
You're welcome. You're welcome.